Fog rolled across the Port of Miami shipping yard at 4:10 a.m. on July 2, 2023, turning the massive freighters into ghostly silhouettes under the harsh floodlights. The harbor held that eerie pre-dawn silence, broken only by the distant hum of generators and the occasional creak of steel against steel as ships swayed gently in their berths. Security footage would later show Ronald Deeks, a 42-year-old overnight port security guard, calmly walking toward loading dock 7 with a standard-issue dolly. His movements were unhurried, professional, exactly what you'd expect from a man who had been doing this job for 6 years without incident. On that dolly sat a locked gray shipping case that appeared routine to anyone watching, except the case contained $10 million in cartel funds, and Ronald Deeks was about to pull off one of the most audacious thefts in port security history. No running, no panic, no obvious signs of criminal intent. Just a man doing his job, except he never came back to finish his shift, and the money vanished with him into the Florida night. Ronald Deeks lived the kind of invisible life that made him perfect for what he was about to do. Retired Coast Guard with 16 years of honorable service, no criminal record, and a personnel file that read like a supervisor's dream. He lived alone in a rented trailer outside Homestead, drove a 10-year-old pickup truck, and spent his free time fishing or watching television. Neighbors barely knew his name. His work history was equally unremarkable. 6 years of night shifts at the port, always on time, never complained, never caused problems. Supervisors trusted him with restricted containers and sensitive cargo because he had earned that trust through consistent, boring reliability. Ronald was the kind of employee who became invisible through competence, someone management never worried about because he never gave them reason to worry. But that invisibility masked careful observation skills developed during his Coast Guard service. Ronald had spent years learning to read shipping manifests, understand cargo protocols, and most importantly, recognize when something didn't belong. His military training had taught him to notice patterns that others missed, and 6 years of night shifts had revealed patterns at the Port of Miami that suggested criminal activity. The Sinaloa and CJNG cartels had been using the port to smuggle not only drugs, but massive amounts of cash back to Mexico through a sophisticated network of corrupted officials and forged documentation. Money from drug sales across the southeastern United States was packed into modified shipping containers, disguised as legitimate commercial cargo, then transported through what appeared to be routine international trade. The container that would change Ronald's life forever had arrived 3 days earlier on the cargo ship Esperanza del Mar, officially listed as containing industrial, HVAC equipment destined for a construction company in Guadalajara. The paperwork was perfect: proper bills of lading, customs declarations that would satisfy inspection, and shipping manifests that matched legitimate trade patterns. But the customs tags were forged by cartel insiders, ensuring the container would avoid the detailed inspection that would reveal its true contents. Inside, carefully packed within actual HVAC units to defeat X-ray inspection, were stacks of shrink-wrapped $100 bills representing months of cartel operations. The $10 million was organized with mathematical precision, vacuum-sealed in packages that matched the weight and dimensions of genuine equipment components. July 2nd presented Ronald with the perfect opportunity. His supervisor had called out sick with food poisoning, leaving Ronald to work the overnight shift with only a trainee who had been on the job for less than 2 weeks. The trainee was eager to prove himself and unlikely to question Ronald's decisions about cargo handling or security procedures. At 3:45 a.m., surveillance cameras in the restricted loading area suddenly went dark. Port security logs would later show a software error reported minutes earlier, a malfunction that could have been genuine technical failure or deliberate sabotage by someone with system access. The camera blackout lasted exactly 23 minutes, providing Ronald with the window he needed to execute his plan. Using a forged shipping manifest that he had prepared weeks in advance, Ronald accessed the locked container and confirmed what he had suspected: millions in cash disguised as legitimate cargo. Working with practiced efficiency, he loaded the money into a standard shipping case and placed it on his dolly, then replaced the cash with genuine HVAC scrap metal that matched the approximate weight. The entire operation took less than 15 minutes. To any casual observer, Ronald was simply moving cargo between storage areas, routine work that happened constantly during overnight shifts. He drove the money to a predetermined location using a port-owned electric truck, transferred it to his personal vehicle, and returned to his security rounds as if nothing had happened. At 4:18 a.m., Ronald swiped his badge and exited through the main gate on foot, walking with the same unhurried pace that had characterized his entire shift. Security footage shows him carrying nothing suspicious. No duffel bags, no obvious signs of theft. He appeared to be heading home after completing another routine night shift. 20 minutes later, a white van pulled up 3 blocks from the port entrance. Ronald stepped inside and the van disappeared into Miami's pre-dawn traffic. It was the last confirmed sighting of Ronald Deeks, in the beginning of one of the FBI's most frustrating manhunts. By 10 a.m., cartel representatives arrived to retrieve their container for transport to Mexico. What they found was a shipping crate full of worthless HVAC scrap metal where $10 million should have been. The discovery triggered immediate panic within the organization's operational hierarchy. Their supposedly secure money transport system had been completely compromised by someone with inside knowledge. The cartel couldn't report the theft to local police without admitting to money laundering operations, but they had resources and methods that law enforcement couldn't employ. Within hours, they contacted their U.S. fixer, who reached out to a DEA asset with a carefully worded message. Major cartel funds had gone missing from federal territory, and someone needed to investigate. FBI Special Agent Maria Santos received the case assignment and immediately recognized its significance. The theft required intimate knowledge of port operations, access to restricted areas, and understanding of cartel transportation methods that pointed toward professional inside knowledge, rather than opportunistic crime. This wasn't luck or coincidence, Agent Santos explained during the initial task force briefing. Someone had been studying this operation for months, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. We're dealing with a subject who understood both maritime security and criminal transportation well enough to exploit vulnerabilities that most people couldn't identify. Ronald Deeks, former port security officer, $10 million still missing. FBI reward, $250,000 for information. The cartel wants answers and isn't waiting for justice.